I had the golf grading system.
which I like, by the way. Tell
I
people
like
about
too.
tell people if people aren't
It's
familiar
changing.
with your golf grading system, explain it because I think it's in some ways it's kind of the perfect way to evaluate the quarterbacks more so than the completion percentage, more so than trying to jot down every play in the context of every play. Give people an idea who maybe are unfamiliar with what your kind of your bogey, birdie, par, golf system of grading the QBs.
Yeah. I did that for several days. I've changed the system because I think it has some flaws, but the basics was you just said it. There are par throws, which in golf is even. There are birdie throws, which are scoring throws, right? Like this is where it gets confusing because they're plus throws, but golf is actually minus scoring. And there's bogeys, which are bad. There's double bogeys, which are twice as bad. And there's eagles, which are
The
better than
snow.
birdies,
What about the snowman, the triple
where you
bogey,
just pick it
which
up.
I'm very familiar with
Just put
from
down an
playing
egg,
golf.
move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I liked it and it was fun. But even though it was fun, Larry, and you've scouted, so you've had your own ways of grading. Even though it was fun and I think an easy way to communicate it for a lot of people, some people don't get golf. And even more so, the bigger issue was not that some people don't understand golf scoring, which is fine. The bigger issue was that I think, and I was talking to a buddy of mine driving back from practice today who played NFL quarterback in the NFL. And I said to him, what do you think most of the throws are? And he said, most of the throws that you have to make as a quarterback are the zero graded throws and the throws that aren't great throws, but are above like a replacement level throw. And PFF has a system that accounts for those throws because what PFF does is they grade on a 0 to 2 scale with 0.5, 1, 1.52, and then negative throws, negative 0.5, negative 1, negative 1.5, negative 2. And what I found watching the Niners really thinking about my grading system the last several days was I felt like there were a lot of throws that were plus zero point 0.5 and minus zero point 0.5 throws that a par birdie bogey system just doesn't really account for. They're good throws. They deserve to be counted as good throws, but they're not quite excellent throws. But they're better than just a quick little check down throw, you know? And I thought my system was not, the golf system was not accounting for that. So I switched to kind of a quasi PFF system recently. On the internet, some are calling it GFF, IFF. Call it whatever you want. But I think that's a better way to kind of pick up some of the nuance. And so that's what I've done the last 2 days. So as an example, can I give you an example?
Yeah. Give me please do.
And this is where like I want to know what you have for these quarterbacks today, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So today I had 3 plus throws for Brock Purdy. They were all plus 0.5 throws. None of them were a plus 1 throw. I had 7 throws for Brock that I graded as just a 0, which PFF says that's a do your job to a reasonable and expected level. That's a 0 throw. And I had 3 minus throws for him. They were all 0.5, minus 0.5 throws today. So all in all, I graded 13 throws for him today. That's not all the throws because there were some throws that to me, they're just not a gradable throw. And 77% of his throws today were 0 or better. Okay. So he was a 0 today. 3 plus 5 throws, or 3 throws that were plus 0.5, 3 throws that were minus 0.5, and then 7 even throws. So he was even today. Trey was plus 0.5 today. He had 2 plus throws. He had 7 0 throws, which are good. And he had 1 minus throw. So I don't want to keep going because some people are lost and some people are high and some people are
187 says I'm lost and too high for this. LOL.
Yeah, I know. So it's not, the purpose of it is not to just regurgitate all the numbers. It's more for me to kind of understand what do I think I saw today.
And let me ask you this, and I'll give you what I have in my kind of system on this. But like give me an example of like John. You do stuff with John Middlecoff, and I always love having you both on. John, I think, is in Tahoe or wherever he's at
On his way to Tahoe.
On his way to Tahoe. So we'll get him on maybe another time. But like, what is John when John goes to camp and you guys are there? What does he bring a notebook? Does he you kind of have like, since you're a play-by-play guy and a good one, by the way, You kind of do a broad, almost like a broadcasting, like a broadcasting card, like a football broadcaster would have, like a big board, but not quite as big as some of those boards. Yeah, show that to everybody. And so, guy prints out this board, and I would say it's like 2 feet by 1 foot, something like that.
It's not quite two. It's these pages are each 17 by 11.
Okay, so and you have everybody in the depth chart, and it just gives you a nice little margin there, and then you bring a pen and you can write notes inside the margin on your depth chart. Yeah, and that's I think that's kind of a cool way of doing it. I know a lot of play-by-play guys really love their boards and work meticulously at putting together good boards. That's just your note-taking mechanism. But like, what's
Right.
John scattered with the Eagles, and you guys have done stuff for years.
Yeah.
Like when he goes to camp, what's his mode or what's his kind of approach to the whole thing, or does he make
His
notes?
brain.
Some guys don't do anything. Some
Yeah,
guys
he
just
watches.
he just watches.
I think he'll make some notes in his phone if he wants to make notes.
Yeah,
Like a lot of people, which a lot of people do. But yeah, he watches.
he doesn't have like a system though that he likes to.
I don't think he doesn't score it in this way, which I didn't either until this year. And then I started seeing everybody posting 7 of 9, 9 of
Right,
9.
right.
And I was like, well, what is, I think there's more context than that, but I don't want to just say, I just want to know if what I perceive is after the fact is what I actually thought if I just went individually to try to avoid any I don't want to pander to the people who just talk about storylines and not storylines, but narratives, etc. But I just wanted, it was like a test for me. Like, did I see what I think I saw? But I don't know. I remember when the Eagles didn't keep him, he tried to like keep as much stuff off the laptop before they wiped the laptop. He had to send it back. I don't know what was your grading system when you scouted? How did you guys do it?
Well, I mean, I scouted with the Sacramento Gold Miners, and that was more like, I was working for the Gold Miners, and I was in camp. I was also the quality control coach. I was the assistant linebacker coach. I was a personnel assistant. I wore a lot of hats. I probably worked 120-hour weeks, and I didn't make tons of notes because I was just immersed in everything I was like on the staff, so I was like involved in making the practice schedule, designing what plays. I would visit with the head coach. We would talk about, how exactly he wanted me to crunch the numbers this week. He would have new approaches to crunching the numbers every week. So it was like my job to establish the numbers. So I would take games off, and in that mode, we would just go literally down in distance, on the field. Then we would turn it into our language. Like, what are they doing, and what do we call that in our language? And then I would, break it down off my sheets, and every game would be like, literally every single play. And it would be like, 1st and 10 on your own 20-yard line, 1st and 10 from the -20. What was the formation? What was the, in the CFL had different kinds of things. So you would have, you'd have to take account for, like, is it 5 wides? Is it 4 wides? Is it, so then you're rolling back from the beginning of it would take us hours because you'd literally break the huddle and you'd have to go check the numbers because it's like, okay, there's 5 eligibles here. But are those 5 running backs? Are those 5 receivers? Are those receivers in the backfield? We had different terminology for everything. Then we had play action. Then we had bootleg. We had different series. And so you'd have to come up with all of it. And if you that's what was the hardest part, because you have to take off every film correctly, because the old saying, if your premise is wrong, your conclusion is wrong. So it's like if your takeoffs were wrong and you got all that wrong, then you could never draw any real conclusions to help your team scout the opponent, because you're not even in the right formation or the right personnel grouping. So we would group it just personnel grouping, formation, and then what was the play, what was the result, and then notes on the results. So, I mean, literally every play would take like almost 10, 12 minutes unless it was something real basic. And then it was a matter of crunching all the numbers. I did it all manually. Now they do it with computers. And so that's how I did it then. Now, when I was with the Cardinals, I did pro personnel evaluation, and we had like a whole system of numbers that we would grade the receiver, the players on. And this is at the dawn of free agency, and so it's a little bit different. Those were guys that were in the league, and we're grading them against the other free agents that were going to be available that year. So it was a little bit of a different process. But like for me now, I go to practice. I bring out. I've got multiple notebooks, but I basically bring out a small notebook here, and in my notebook, I'll just go with just basic notes. So I went with the transaction of the day. Ronald A. Watt cut. Jeremy McNichols signed. Then I went into just anecdotes, one-on-one notes, and then when it gets to 11 on 11, I'll put the quarterback, square him out, and then count his reps, and then just basically briefly describe what happened. And if something stands out, I write it. If it doesn't stand out, I go to the next play, and I'm really trying to keep minimal notes just so I can have an account of what the quarterbacks are doing and then an account of anything. And then at the end of practice, I go through, and since I'm doing 2 videos every day, an instant reaction, I'm going through my notes, putting together an instant reaction sheet with anything that stood out to me, and then I do a good and a bad, and I kind of break it down, and I do 2 videos, and then I hit the road and head home. So that's kind of my approach. I mean, it's everybody's got to do a